months old next to you in the car. He's crying, he's tired, he's hungry, and all that is going through your mind is, our business is failing. Our business is failing. And day after day, you're sitting in that traffic, your stomach is cramping. There is just that stress of, oh my God. Baby next to you is number 3. Your husband was working for Oceanic Bank. And if any of you remember what happened in 2007, you had the banking intervention. Now, I think we can all agree that that was a time of uncertainty. I am pleased to say that the business continues to run today. Over time, it rebranded from Travant Capital. It's now Alpha African Advisory. I left it a couple of years ago to myself and my partner left it a couple of years ago because we both went into government and the business continues to run. So I tell you that story to tell you that leadership in uncertainty is just the reality, but there are certain things that we need to do that will enable us to be successful and to navigate that uncertainty. Now, this is going to be an interactive session. I'm not just going to talk and talk and talk at you. We're all together. This is a family meeting. And we're going to say, how are we going to lead through difficulty and through uncertainty? So please take your phones out. First question is, I've just shared a bit about how I was feeling during that time and the thought in my mind. So I want you to, using this app, go on and just put a word or two about the kind of thoughts you think you'd be having or the feelings you'll be experiencing as a leader during times of uncertainty. I'll just give you another minute. Please, everybody, take your phones and just put the word. Unfortunately, because of the setup, we can't project it, but I'll read you through the different words that are coming up. Are you all done? Have you all completed it? Okay, yes. Okay, so we're getting words like anger, anxiety, overwhelm. So I just wait a minute, let them. Can you hear? Is that better? No, is it better? It seems to be worse. It seems to be. Oh, okay. Now, this is a practical experience of leading in terms of uncertainty. Will my mic work or will my mic not work? So you can hear? So anger, we've got fear, we've got confusion, we've got overwhelm, we've got burden, we've got concern, the question of what next, unrest, anxiety and fear are two of the most recurring words from shared. And that doesn't surprise any of us because there's that fear of what's going to happen. What is the future going to look like? What does this mean for me? What does this mean for the team I'm leading? What does this mean for the organization I am leading? And there's that feeling of being. But the reality is that in life, not everything is in our control. That is just life. And it's part of the thing is learning to sit comfortably in uncertainty and learning to accept that not everything is within our control. The next slide. Now, how we handle difficulties and uncertainties is not really shaped by the circumstances of today. So we think that, oh, it was this difficult thing and that's why I responded the way I did. The truth is, we respond the way we do based on who we are. The circumstances of today, depending on how we handle them, will determine who we are tomorrow and therefore how we handle tomorrow's circumstances. But how we respond to today's circumstances is based on experiences from yesterday and before. Next slide, please. Sandra? Okay. All right. So this looks complicated, but I'm going to talk you through it. Because the moment you understand how you function in your inside, so we all just think, oh, I did this, I said this, and I'm sure each one of us, we've always had a situation where, why did I act that way? Why did I say what I said? What is driving me? Now, we think it is complicated. It is not complicated, but it is complex. And the better you understand yourself, i.e. self-awareness, and somebody spoke about self-awareness earlier, the more you can understand your likely responses to future situations, but even how you're responding today, also how other people are responding. So we're starting at the very bottom. If you think about it, like if I just ask any one of you now, you'll be able to tell me a painful childhood experience. Something that left you just feeling sad or bad. We've all grown and been raised in imperfect homes by imperfect adults, in some cases actually based on circumstances, by older siblings. And so we have these that are formed in our inside. But often we just think, well, I just moved on. It doesn't matter. This thing happened, that thing happened. But, that was yesterday and it doesn't matter. But what happens is, based on these life experiences, especially the painful ones, but even positive ones, because Dr. Okoli was saying how his father was constantly affirming him. And so based on that, he had certain beliefs about himself. So the experiences we have form memories. Now, if you're somebody that used to get slapped a lot, the moment I come like this, you will flinch. But if you're somebody who slapping was not a thing, you will not flinch. She clearly did not flinch, so slapping was not a thing for you. But maybe if I start raising my tone for somebody whose shouting was a thing, they will respond. So we have these memories. Actually, I'm even learning more about how even our physical cells have memories. And so experiences that we have get coded into our cells and can even go from generation to generation. But that is another matter. Let's start with generation. So we have these memories, but then we also form beliefs. There's stories we tell ourselves that, say for example, okay, when I was in reception, age 4, I had my teacher in reception. When you did your classwork, you had to go to her with your book. And for everything you got wrong, you had one stroke of the ruler. That meant I formed a belief that making a mistake or getting things wrong equates punishment. So can you imagine somebody age 4 believes that getting things wrong equates punishment? Age 40, when they're running a business, how do you think that's affecting their psyche? Age 30, when they're in a relationship, how do you think it's affecting how they deal with things? So we form all these belief sets, and often these belief sets are limiting, but we don't realize. It's shaping and framing everything. You even have forms values. Values being is most important to us. What do we think is most important? So you'll find that, for example, somebody who grew up in a household where there was lots of financial hardship would just believe that money is the most important thing. If I can just get money, everything will be okay. And values shape our leadership style. So some people where control, maybe growing up, they felt really out of control. So control becomes really important to them. Do you think that person's leadership style will lean towards authoritarian or influence? It's going to be authoritarian because he or she must just control everything. But that is being based on their painful life experiences. Now, all these things are underneath. It's in the subconscious. Most of us don't even know that all this stuff is going on. And so it then goes on to affect our thoughts and our feelings. Now, some of our feelings is in the conscious, but some of our feelings are in the subconscious, which is why in Nigerian parlance, so many of us sometimes will just say, I am feeling somehow. What is that somehow? What is causing that somehowness? We have to spend the time to stop long enough to actually put words to that somehow. Because I have questioned, and I still believe that it is very difficult to process an emotion you can't articulate. If you can't articulate it, if you can't put your finger on it, if you can't say that somehow is actually, I am feeling really worried that there are 3 other master classes and their sounds is going to cause confusion for mine. I can't take steps. Do you see what I mean? You need to be able to put your finger on it. Better still, you can ask yourself, so why am I feeling that way? Why do I think that way? You know, always remember, this is over 20 years ago. A friend of mine came to visit me and came with her mother. And her mother made a comment which just seemed very plain, innocuous, etc. But then the way my friend responded, she just flew off the handle. And you realize that clearly there was a lot more going on underneath. So that what seemed like just a comment. So think of your team, right? There are 10 people in your team. Different backgrounds, different experiences, different anxieties, different worries. So you say sentences, and it is received in 10 different ways because of what is going on with those individuals. Equally, we receive things. Somebody says something to you, and that difference between what is said and what is received, often there's a gap because we filter it through a particular prism. Now, it is those thoughts and feelings and that sense of identity and desire. I didn't even talk about desire. There's 16, psychologists believe that there's 16 core desires. That includes the desire for love, the desire for security, the desire for affirmation, etc., etc. And all those things drive us. So by the time we're coming to make a decision, like a leadership decision, can you see all the unspoken, unrealized stuff that is going on? And it is from that decision that will then take action and speak words, the behavior. So when we're trying to deal, I'm trying to change my behavior. When we don't address the fundamental things going on, that's why we get stuck. And also that's why when we're raising our children and we're focused on just getting the right behavior from them, and we're not investing the time and effort to understand what's going on in their hearts, that's why we have some of these challenges. So does that make sense? Am I making sense now? So we understand more of what's going on within us. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so you've got to ask yourself, I'm in a time of uncertainty. I'm a leader. What is driving me? What is the prism through which I am seeing life? Now, I've just kept it here at just two opposing ones because it just gives you a sense. Am I looking through life and the outlook through a prism of hope or a prism of fear? Am I looking at the time of uncertainty or even a crisis? Some people will say, never let a good crisis go to waste. That's a hopeful, positive way of looking at issues. Others look at crisis and think, Mogbe, I don't. And they cannot see past. They cannot see a hopeful future. Therefore, they'll just be, so that the person who's thinking, I'm not going to let it waste, think, what good can come out of this? How am I going to turn it to make it work for me? And in fact, actually, yesterday's gone. What was happening before, that season has ended. What does the new season look like? And look forward to it with a sense of positivity and anticipation, as opposed to a real dread. Next slide, please. So, we're talking about leadership. As I said, it's not the circumstance of today that is making you the leader of today. Really, we need to have invested the time the time today to become the leader that tomorrow will require. So I want you guys to just play with me, take your phones out. What do we think are the attributes that a leader in a time of uncertainty will require? What are those attributes? Please, I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. Keep it coming. So far, only 3 responses. Okay, it's coming. I'll just give you guys another minute. Okay. Oh, I love it. Somebody said a coach. Yes, the ICF will be happy you use a coach. Yes, that certainly helped. So we've got calm, focus, adaptability, flexibility, resilience, lots of resilience, the right mindset, resilience, adaptability, patience, emotional intelligence, calmness. Yes, agility, thoughtfulness, and emotional intelligence. Next slide, please. I'm glad to see that we're all on the same page because I too had thought about, what do we think? So think about it, right? You're following a leader. There's a certain demeanor that you're expecting of them. Because one of the things you want to feel is you want to feel reassured. You want to feel that as difficult as it is, somehow it's going to be okay. Somehow it's going to work out. So a leader who seems more anxious and panicky than you does not inspire confidence at all. So that general calmness gives a sense of control, gives a sense that, we know what we're doing here. Then you're going to need bravery because sometimes some of the things we deal with as leaders, they're hard. They're hard times. I didn't give you the context that when I was talking about, in that car about the business, because 2008 is when we'd had the financial crisis. This was a private equity business. You're dependent on for your running costs and to make investments. Some of the anchor investor essentially was one of the intervened banks. So they had no money. So this your $108 million you thought you had raised to start investing. Initially first 50 million disappears. As leaders, we're going to face really difficult situations. And we just gird our loins and be brave. Then we're going to have to be patient. Because remember that different people respond in different ways. So the people in your team, the people in your company, some of them, as they're seeing the situation, some will be freaking out. Depending on what's happened, some would have faced trauma, because one thing I don't think we talk about enough is workplace trauma and workplace abuse. These are real things. A certain level of compassion, of kindness, of patience that would be required of you for you to show up as an effective leader in different uncertain times. Then emotional intelligence. In fact, I think all this stuff revolves around emotional intelligence. But do you know one of the key things for emotional intelligence? Self-awareness. Which is why I took the time starting and helping you all to understand how you yourself functions. Because when you understand how you function more, better, then you understand how other people function. It would help your EQ to know that, okay, as I come into this room, bad news has just taken place. When I come in, you've got to be other-centered, right? Because you don't just come wanting to say what you want to say. You've got to ask yourself, what do they want to hear? How do you want to leave them feeling? Panicked, reassured, hopeful, fearful. You're going to need resilience. At some point, this business that had about 20 employees, when we were down to 3, one of the ladies in the team looked at me and she said, Sanyade, smell the coffee. It's almost like you are mad. I'm not mad like you. I have found another job. And I would advise you to just shut the business down and get on with your life. That was her view. But myself and my partner, we stayed on. Why did we stay on? We stayed on because we had already taken people's money and we had invested $6.5 million of their money. We did try to say to some of the investors, okay, let's find another way of managing it. They're like, no, you took our money. You will manage it. So we managed. And we kept moving. Adaptability, we changed the model from investment to advisory. We had to pivot. That is what the time required. Next slide, please. Now, we've spoken about some of the attributes that are required. What do we think are some of the impediments? What stops us from showing up with some of the... Just bear with me, do this again. What are some of the things that impede our ability to demonstrate sound leadership? Are you all feeling it? Please work with... It can't just be me talking. This is meant to be a masterclass, interactive. It's not a speech, not a keynote, not a presentation. It's a masterclass. We need to work together. Sorry, the idea was the bubbles will come up and you will see how many people put resilience versus calmness and whatever, but let's work with it. We'll just give it another minute. All right. Fear factor, fear, overthinking, second guessing, the absence of the definition of the why, misdirection, fear of failure, fear of the unknown, fear of judgment, past experience, ignorance, lack of emotional intelligence, fear, lack of confidence, know-how, lack of clarity of purpose, rigidity, etc. Now, was there a particular word that we saw coming up quite a bit? Next slide, please. So it wouldn't surprise you what's on my next slide. Next slide. Aha. So fear is obvious. Now, the other one, which may not be so obvious, but if you just take a bit of time and think about it, you'd realize that rejection wounds. And the rejection wounds show in different ways. They show up in fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of, getting it wrong, fear of what people are going to say, fear. So, I am very pleased that in your, they seem to be suffering more than us, so. Let's keep it moving. In your bags, there's a paper and pen. I want us to do, now we've gone from group interaction, you're going to do a bit of self-reflection now. It's easier to do with paper and pen than with phones because scientists say there's something about writing as opposed to typing that actually gets the brain flowing. So if you've got a blue bag, there's paper and pen in there. please work with me, because as with so many things in life, the more you put in, the more you get out. So if you put stuff in, you take the time, you do the reflection, you will get stuff out of it. There's some questions I'm going to pose to you that I want you to just ask yourself. You don't need to share with anyone. This is just for you. I'm not calling anyone out to share your experience. No. This is for you and you and you alone. Next slide, please. Oh, okay. It wasn't all meant to come up at once. It was meant to do transition, but it is what it is. So, I want you to think of a scenario in your life. Ideally, maybe one you're facing, or one you're expecting, or one you just faced, right? And ask yourself, what are my biggest fears? And it can be any area of your life. Work, it could be play, it could be relationship, it could be dreams, anything. What's the biggest fear? I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to write that down. To think about it and write it down. And it doesn't just have to be one. Just write it. Just let it flow. So just a reminder, if you spectate, you'll get very little. If you engage, you'll get a lot from this. Then ask yourself, how likely is it that this fear will happen? And there was another time when the business was going through a difficult time. And I went somewhere, I love the outdoors, just went somewhere, nice, green, airy, sat outside. I took an A4 sheet of paper and I started writing my fears. And then started engaging with them and asking, actually, what is the chance that this thing will happen? And are there mitigants I can put in place to address this? And even if it did happen, what could I do? So, as you know, I used to be in private sector. Making the move from private sector to government was hard for me. And that was another time I had to do this. What were my fears? I had 2 children still at home. One of them was about to do his IGCSEs. So you think, how, as a mother, do I leave this child as he's about to do important exams and go? My daughter at the time was like maybe 11. He said, how do you leave your 11-year-old daughter in Lagos and you go to Abuja? What does this mean for my marriage? What does this mean for my business? And so I articulated it all and just started writing, and I must admit I'm also a prayerful person. Just saying, okay, Lord, what are you saying about all of these? Well, suffice it to say, I'm putting on 2 years in government, which meant confront those fears and I could move on. So for those of you, in the interest of time, take a photo of this. And at home, when it's peaked, because I know it's quite noisy here, just do this. Now, I'm going to push you even further. I didn't write it here. But I also want you to, in mind with what I just shared about how we function as human beings, ask yourself, where is this fear coming from? What is it that I have experienced in life that is making me have this fear? Because if you silence yourself enough, often you can say what it is. And what I didn't talk about, but I need to add here. You know those painful life experiences? There's one path to being healed from them. And it's one word: forgiveness. Forgiveness is the key to healing. But I also add that forgiveness is multi-layered, because everybody, as I said, I know that we all have this experience and we all will say that we have forgiven. But then if the memory of that experience still hurts, or the thought of a person still hurts, it means there's still healing work to be done. And the thing about forgiveness is, as I said, layered. So you forgive for what the person did. Then sometimes you have to forgive for how it made you feel at the time. Then maybe how it affected your life then, how it might be affecting your life today. There are decisions that have been made, even maybe by our parents, maybe choices about, educational outcomes. Maybe they forced us to do a certain degree and things like that, that is affecting us today. And then sometimes we actually have to forgive people for who they are, because just their very person can be causing you some hurt and pain. But that there is a whole nother thing. But I just think it's important to raise it. Next slide, please. So, coping mechanisms in times of difficulties, in times of challenges and uncertainty as we're leading. I am a big advocate of stillness. And I know that for those of us living in Lagos, we think, where can I find stillness? Sometimes you might not be able to go out to the beach. Sometimes it's in your bedroom. Sometimes it's in your bathroom. A lot of mothers will say that, that first 15 minutes in the morning, I enter my bathroom, I lock myself, husband or children or mama or everybody. So just find somewhere where you can be still for a bit. Another seeming basic coping mechanism is just deep breaths, because it helps to bring calmness. The quality of decision you will get when you're emotional is very different from the quality of decision when your emotions have been brought under control. You don't want to get rid of your emotions, because your emotions, they're telling you something. Do not ignore your emotions. Your emotions they're like fire alarms. If we had a fire alarm here, would we just break the fire alarm and continue, or would we all run out? That's what our emotions are like. They're telling us, they're trying to get our attention. So you have to take time to even silence the noise and listen and saying, what are these emotions telling me? About today, about tomorrow, about yesterday. And these coping mechanisms I'm talking about, it helps to remove the cloud. Sometimes we need to put our phones down, put our devices down. I must admit, I'm one of these people who I'd like to, even as I'm brushing my teeth at night, to be watching one video or the other. But I realize if I just leave the phone and just be, surprise, surprise, I have thoughts. And surprise, surprise, those thoughts have value. Sometimes we just need to come aside. Sometimes you have to take a day. Go find somewhere. Or you ask everybody to leave the house. Especially when you have to make key decisions. I'll tell you, COVID. The week before shut down in Lagos. First of all, I had one child abroad. I woke up on the Thursday morning saying, and I prayed, God, do I keep this child there for Easter or do I bring this child home? By Thursday night, I knew this child was coming home. By Friday, her ticket was being booked. By Saturday night, that child was on a plane. By Sunday, the 15th of March, my child was at home. Probably one of the first to get back here. The following week, the Monday or the Tuesday, I saw what was going on. I told them in the office, please, tomorrow I'm staying home. I stayed home. I prayed, I reflected. By the Wednesday, I'm like, we're going to prepare for a shutdown. Now I know the words, but it's like, let's prepare for not being able to. So our systems were all in place. So by the time Lagos State was shutting down, we were good to go. That is leadership in times of uncertainty. But you need the calmness and the stillness to be able to make high quality decisions. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. Now, in life, there will always be times. People say I'm anti-soft life. It's not that I don't want a good life, but I know I'm old enough to know that life will always come with challenges. So you have to ask yourself, what are your anchors? For some people, faith is that anchor. I'm sure you've worked out by now that for me, it's an anchor. You know, as bad as things are today, I just know that by the time I sleep and in the morning I pray, the world is going to be a better place. What are you focusing on? So who are you focusing on? What are you focusing on? Gratitude just gives you perspective. Thank you. Gratitude just shifts your perspective. Because they say you become what you focus on. So if all you can see is the negative, then you can't see the opportunities. But the people who are in your team, in your company, they're looking for you to show the way. They're looking for you to be visionary regardless of what is going on. They're looking for you to be able to see opportunities. So when you begin to look at things with an attitude of gratitude, you begin to see how actually there might be some pathway towards a better future. And then who are you walking alongside? They've spoken about leadership, being a CEO, being lonely. Find a community of CEOs. Why alone? You know, with my work, I was thinking to myself, I've been thinking, okay, some of the decisions I make now, somebody asked me a question. I said, ask me in 10 years' time whether that was the right decision. Because it's like you realize that only time will tell. But then a few weeks ago, I had the privilege of sitting down with somebody, an older person, who has walked a similar path. And I realized, oh wow, I didn't need to wait 10 years. Just actually talking to the right people helped to validate some of my decisions and correct some of my other decisions. Next slide, please. So, take a photo of this because they've said time out. I'm a coach. This is International Coaching Federation. We can't have you leaving here without an action. So the question is, what's the one action, at least one, what are you going to do differently based on what this session and all you've learned today? When will you do it by? It has to be smart, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely, time-bound. Not any woolly thing. It has to be smart. What will be the outcomes? Because you need to know where you're driving towards. And then the last question, and this is important. How motivated are you to take this action? If it is anything less than 7.5, scrap that action and do another one. Because if it's less than 7.5, you're highly unlikely to do it. Next slide, please. Next slide and final slide. So what I've done is I work for government, so I had to leave this is my passion. So my business was the financial advisory. This was my vocation, but I've had to leave it all. But I still have a whole lot of content as holistic perspectives. So I've got some blog posts there. You can follow. That's Omotola now runs Holistic. I've had to step back. And there's a lot of content that you can get that would help you along your leadership journey. Thank you all very much. Couple of questions before yes. Questions?
Thank you. All right. Is it possible to be excited in such a time? How possible is it for me to be excited looking at the crisis in my organization, checking cost of production I will lose, and you are telling me to be excited when the union are planning to shut down the next 3-4 days? What kind of excitement do you think I will have, or anxiety? And those are really uncertain period because there was no prior crisis. Somebody just messed up at the factory, an expatriate slapped a Nigerian, and that was all. So what excitement do you expect me, no matter my emotional intelligence? Because what they are telling you is that HR is there, is the separate problem solver. How can I be excited?
Okay, thank you. Great question. Remember that slide about what prism are you looking at things through? It's all about the prism, the lens through which you're looking at the situation. What you could be excited about is, wow, this is an opportunity for personal growth. Wow, this is an opportunity. You know, there are some changes we wanted to make. You people go on strike. In fact, we will just use this as an opportunity to make that change we have always wanted to make. So it's really about how you're looking at it. It might not be easy, but how you look at it. One more question. They're telling me to round up. Okay, then we're done. It's questions. Our work here is done.